I'm Ariel Azor, host of Right This Way, and today we're going to talk about the VP debate. Now, as I always say, I'd much prefer you watch this on your own. If you didn't watch it, I don't want you to take my word. I don't want you to take anybody's word for it about what happened and what went down. So if you can watch it, which you absolutely can, pull up the video on YouTube if you didn't watch it. As I say that, even if you're not very interested in politics or you don't have a very good understanding of politics in general or some of these issues that they covered, it can be a little bit hard to understand what the actual facts are when they're each saying, no, you're lying, I'm telling the truth. That can be confusing and it can be hard to actually sort out the facts. So we're going to do that today. I'm going to start with a quick recap of how I thought the debate went down. Truthfully, I didn't have high hopes for this. So I would say it did exceed my expectations just a bit. I was disappointed that the actual format of the debate didn't include very much debating. The candidates being asked different questions was odd to me. That is not really the best way to go about it. But overall, I think the candidates did pretty well. Pence did not disappoint me. He really was very poised, very professional, very put together. He knew his facts. He is a little bit witty in the same way that Trump is, but without quite so much bravado and bullying that, did sort of happen a bit on the debate stage between Joe and Trump. So I did think this debate overall went much smoother. Although Kamala is difficult to watch at times as, they would put the split screen up while Pence was speaking and, she's rolling her eyes and she's smirking and he's saying things and she's just laughing and she's just laughing at him. And so some of it is just honestly a little bit difficult to watch. In my opinion, at least. I mean, maybe you like her. I feel like Kamala is always trying to do this thing where she points out how relatable she is. And every single time she tries to point out how relatable she is, she seems to have this flop where, they asked her who her favorite rapper was, and she said a rapper that's been dead for 20 years, and things like that. She always sort of does this. And, she comes out wearing her Converse with her, suit. And again, it's just not relatable. You look like a high school girl from the early 2000s who thought it was cute to wear her Converse with her prom dress. You really missed the mark. And so again, this kind of happens over and over again. And I think we see this a lot with Kamala. Stakes are a lot higher in this. So I think she did fold a bit under the pressure because when they did ask hard questions, she very politician answered by not answering whatsoever. She disguised that a bit better than Joe, but Pence did a really good job, I think, actually coming for her and bringing up certain points that the moderator failed to bring up. So those are my thoughts on the debate. Again, like I said, always watch it yourself. Get the facts. Don't get the facts from a source that you might not be able to trust. I think no matter what, you kind of end up being a bit biased toward one side, but these VP debates aren't obviously as important as the presidential debate. You could look at it that way, or you could look at it as we know for a fact that if Joe Biden wins, Kamala will be the president less than a year after he takes office. So you can look at it either way. It's definitely still important. It's not something to totally skip past, but truthfully, there wasn't very many very interesting points of the night. We did have a fly land on Mike Pence's head. It was kind of funny. Also, it's really not that embarrassing. It happened to Obama, happened to Hillary Clinton in 2016. There's pictures of them also on stage with flies crawling around them. At least Mike, it just landed on his hair. Obama and Hillary, it landed on their faces. It was crawling around her lip. What a surprise. It probably smells garbage in there. But overall, honestly, I felt like this was pretty boring. So we're going to go over a few quick highlights and a couple things I want to point out where we had moments that Pence would mention something and Kamala would say, no, that's a lie. That's not true. I never said that. And he's like, of course you said that. You just said that. So we're going to go over a couple of those points. I'm going to show you the proof that she said that, the proof that it happened, the proof that that is the Biden administration's plan, because Kamala was not completely honest with you. Shocker. This right here is the very first absolute blatant lie that I can literally go and very easily find video proof of both of them saying the exact opposite.
There's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking. So, yeah.
No more drilling on federal lands. No more drilling, including offshore. No ability for the oil industry to continue to drill, period. ends, taking millions of automobiles off the road. No new fracking, not another new coal plant will be built. We both agree that we have a new Green Deal.
It's not a good look for the Biden campaign that it is that simple to say, you said this yesterday and you said this 1 week ago, and they're two completely different things. Where do you stand?
Well, I mean, I thought we saw enough of it in last week's debate, but I think this is supposed to be a debate based on fact and truth. And the truth and the fact is Joe Biden has been very clear. He will not raise taxes on anybody who makes less than $400,000 a year.
He said he's going to repeal the Trump tax cuts.
Mr. Vice President, I'm speaking.
Well,
I'm speaking.
It'd be important if you said the truth. Joe Biden said twice in the debate last week that he's going to repeal the Trump tax cuts. That was tax cuts that gave the average working family $2,000 in a tax break every single year. Senator,
that is absolutely not true.
Is he only going to repeal part of the Trump tax cuts?
If you don't mind letting me finish, we can then have a conversation, okay?
Please.
Okay. Joe Biden will not raise taxes on anyone who makes less than $400,000 a year. He has been very clear about that. Joe Biden will not end fracking. He has been very clear about that.
And here's the thing that she's saying. It doesn't make any logical sense. It's not possible. She says, we are going to get rid of President Trump's tax cuts, but we are not going to raise taxes on Americans who make less than $400,000 a year. The very thing she's saying here doesn't make any sense either still. But even if you're only raising the taxes on wealthier Americans, it's still not enough to account for all of that money. What's really going to happen is that they're going to impose taxes on businesses, which, again, that's really the consumer, which, again, is everyday American people. Businesses, big corporations, that's what many people do not understand when they listen to what the left says. They say, we're not going to tax you, we're going to tax businesses. What people don't understand is that the small business, when you tax, is that the business, big corporation, it sounds great to tax them because, I mean, on a surface level, it sounds great to tax them because they have to pay and we don't, and they have all this money. But here's what happens. Big corporations, they just raise their prices that you have to pay. They don't pay taxes. We do. And we pay all of the taxes. Prices are set at what they're at based on taxes. And they rise and decrease based on taxes and supply and demand. But people don't put that together because it sounds really great. What's coming out of her mouth sounds really great. It does. It sounds amazing. But it isn't reality. And it's the same thing with, she just said just here, we're not going to ban fracking. Literally, I won't even get into that because there's video of Kamala saying we're going to ban fracking, absolutely. There's video of Joe saying we're going to ban fracking, absolutely. So it's just, I mean, again, that's really not something to get into. Blatant lie right there. Kamala then goes on to make a really strange statement when they're talking about the Supreme Court nomination. She says this really weird story about Honest Abe. I'm just going to play the video for you and then we'll talk about it.
I couldn't be more proud to serve as vice president to a president who stands without apology for the sanctity of human life. I'm pro-life. I don't apologize for it. And this is another one of those cases where there's such a dramatic contrast. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris support taxpayer funding of abortion all the way up to the moment of birth. Late-term abortion. They want to increase funding to Planned Parenthood of America. Now, for our part, I would never presume how Judge Amy Coney Barrett would rule on the Supreme Court of the United States, but we'll continue to stand strong for the right to life. When you speak about the Supreme Court, though, I think the American people really deserve an answer, Senator Harris. Are you and Joe Biden going to pack the court if Judge Amy Coney Barrett is confirmed? I mean, there have been 29 vacancies on the Supreme Court during presidential election years, from George Washington to Barack Obama. Presidents have nominated in all 29 cases. But your party is actually openly advocating adding seats to the Supreme Court, which has had 9 seats for 150 years, if you don't get your way. This is a classic case of if you can't win by the rules, you're going to change the rules. Now, you've refused to answer the question. Joe Biden has refused to answer the question. So I think the American people would really like to know, if Judge Amy Coney Barrett is confirmed to the Supreme Court of the United States, are you and Joe Biden, if somehow you win this election, going to pack the Supreme Court to get your way?
I'm so glad we went through a little history lesson. Let's do that a little more. In 1864.
Well, I'd like you to answer the
No,
question.
Mr. Vice President, I'm
please,
speaking.
very
I'm
fast.
speaking. Okay. In 1864, one of the, I think, political heroes, certainly of the president, I assume if you also, Mr. Vice President, is Abraham Lincoln.
Mm-hmm.
Abraham Lincoln was up for re-election. And it was 27 days before the election. And a seat became open on the United States Supreme Court. Abraham Lincoln's party was in charge not only of the White House, but the Senate. But Honest Abe said it's not the right thing to do. The American people deserve to make the decision about who will be the next president of the United States. And then that person can select who will serve for a lifetime on the highest court of our land. And so Joe and I are very clear. The American people are voting right now. And it should be their decision about who will serve on this most important body for a lifetime.
Thank you.
So you saw that there. She says that Abe Lincoln, Honest Abe, she calls him, just, try to be real American or something, I don't know, or try to bring credibility to her story. If you use the word honest in a sentence, people will think you're honest. I have no idea. No one thinks that about her, so it's a little bit odd. But once again, she proves that she isn't honest. She completely makes up a story about Abraham Lincoln. She says that he said this, and it's not even what happened, so there's literally no chance he said that. What actually happened was that the court was not in session, and it happened the very next day. So, it's just silly. It's not the same reasoning. It's not the same circumstance. It's not what happened. Her little story she made up is completely made up. Completely made up. After that, Pence takes a chance he has to respond to a question by asking Kamala a direct question. I'll play the video to that so you can see Kamala's non-answer.
Senator Harris.
People, Susan, are voting right now. They'd like to know if you and Joe Biden are going to pack the Supreme Court if you don't get your way in this nomination.
Let's talk about packing.
You once again gave a non-answer. Joe Biden gave a non-answer.
Trying to answer you
the
now.
American people deserve a straight answer. And if you haven't figured it out yet, the straight answer is they are going to pack the Supreme Court if they somehow win this election. Men and
Mr.
women,
Vice
I
President,
got to
I
tell you,
think
people across this country, if you cherish our Supreme Court, if you cherish the separation of powers, you need to reject the Biden-Harris ticket. Come November the 3rd, re-elect President Donald Trump, and we'll stand by that separation of powers in a 9-seat Supreme Court.
Yeah, let's talk about packing the court then. Let's talk about the
Please.
fact. Yeah, I'm about to. So the Trump-Pence administration has been, because I sit on the Senate Judiciary Committee, Susan, as you mentioned, and I've witnessed the appointments for lifetime appointments to the federal courts, district courts, courts of appeal. People who are purely ideological, people who have been reviewed by legal professional organizations and found to have been not competent, are substandard. And do you know that of the 50 people who President Trump appointed to the Court of Appeals for lifetime appointments, not one is black? This is what they've been doing. You want to talk about packing a court? Let's have that discussion.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Senator. Let's go on and talk about the issue of racial justice.
I just want the record to reflect she never answered the question. So I think
Thank
maybe
you.
the next debate, Joe Biden will answer the question.
Thank you.
But I think
Thank
the
you.
American people know the answer.
Thank you, Vice.
She literally doesn't answer the question at all. She talks about how there's not enough black people in the courts for no reason. That came out of nowhere. There was literally no point of that whatsoever other than to fill up her time that she had to answer by not answering. And then she says, you want to talk about packing the courts? Let's have that discussion. Okay, I just asked you to have it, and you just avoided the discussion. You don't end your statement by saying, let's have that discussion. I thought we were having it. It's a complete, blatant non-answer, and for whatever reason, no one cares. The moderator, just like Chris Wallace helping Joe Biden last week, she said, let's move on. Time to move on. Because Kamala doesn't want to answer, let's move on. Pence makes a great point at the end saying, she didn't answer. Good. You're right. She didn't. Thank you for pointing it out because, the moderator was happy to move on. She doesn't want to answer this question, so she talks about how there's not enough black people in the courts. You know what the next question is? That the moderator grabs right as soon as she's done talking about that and saying, let's have that discussion. The moderator says, okay, Yeah, new topic. You know what our new topic is? Race. Interesting timing, right? Kamala goes on to give some long-winded answer about this and about how racist people are, how cops are racist, and we need so much reform. After that, Kamala goes on to say that they need justice reform. This is why. She says if we ban chokeholds and carotid holds, whatever, I'll play the video for you. She says George Floyd would be alive today. Let's take a look.
And our criminal justice system, which is why Joe and I will immediately ban chokeholds and carotid holds. George Floyd would be alive today if we did that. We will require a national registry for police officers who break the law. We will, on the issue of criminal justice reform, get rid of private prisons and cash bail, and we will decriminalize marijuana. And we will expunge the records of those who have been convicted of marijuana. This is a time for leadership on a tragic issue
Senator Harris,
of
your time
unarmed
is up.
Black people in America.
Thank you, Senator Harris.
I'm here to point out every single time she lies. That's not a fact. You say that like that's such a fact. He would be alive today if the justice system were different. Saying that criminal justice reform would have saved his life? You can't say that. You can't possibly know that. Again, it's just this. I'm so confident that my policies are so good. Don't even think about my policies. I'm just telling you they're good. Take my word for it. That was her entire monologue. And it is every single time. Joe Biden's the same way. Trump doesn't have a plan. Trump can't do this. His administration doesn't know what it's doing, but I do. Okay, but what? Right? It's over and over and over again. We don't actually know what they're doing. If we were to elect Joe Biden next month, I think we are going to be in for a very interesting next 4 years. And I think that the American people at some point are going to get tired of the lies. I think that the need for transparency is going to spread not just through the silent majority, but even through the left. If you've enjoyed this episode, you can give me a thumbs up on YouTube. You can leave a review on Apple Podcasts, and you can also check out my Instagram at right.this.way.